Cool. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So hi, I'm Disha, and basically, why I'm conducting this interview with you is I'm participating in a course on startups. So one of my assignments in there is basically interviewing a startup entrepreneur.
Sure.
So that is why this whole thing, and my fellow mates would like to see this, so that's why I'm recording it. That's all. So can you hear me
Okay.
properly?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Cool. So, should I start with the questions?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And sorry, what startup program is this? Just so that even I'm aware of it.
Yeah, so basically it's something called as ThinkStartup. So young entrepreneurs basically they teach us. So I'm
Got
interested
it.
in
Okay,
building.
that's
What?
perfect. Yeah, we can start.
Okay. So my first question for you is what's the story behind Haptic and how did you zero in on the concept and why the name Haptic?
Yeah. Uh, no, absolutely. So, the story behind Haptic. So basically, Haptic started by Akrit, who's my co-founder, and myself. And we started the company in August 2013.
Mm.
But the idea and the concept, right, was actually in the working since 2011. So
Okay.
um, Akrit and I have been good friends, right? So we've actually known each other since 2004 because we were in the same college together. So we were actually very good friends since college. We were both in the technology space. We used to kind of very passionate about technology. So we used to keep tinkering about a lot of ideas. We were both in tech startups in San Francisco. So, we've been in the space and we would keep kind of talking about ideas. But the haptic idea mainly, right? In 2011, Akrit basically used to work for a startup where it was an analytics startup, right? So he
Okay.
could essentially he's in the data space. He was looking at analytics. He was looking at how things are growing and all that stuff. And he was just very well read in, the whole ecosystem of what's happening out there. So one of the things, when him and I were talking about, right, it came about where he was like, hey, we're seeing a lot of adoption of these chat apps, right? So at that point, you could see WhatsApp be picking up a lot. You could
Yeah.
see, back then there was BBM as well, which was BlackBerry Messenger and those kind of things, right? So we saw a lot of kind of people become using that, right? And I mean, we all ourselves were also kind of using that a lot, right? So we realized that, hey, there is a very interesting medium here where people are communicating and chatting with each other. So far at that point, chat was always for talking to your friends or talking to another person, right? We were like, hey, can we take this to the next level where we can build more utility on top, right? So can we use this medium to start helping people out for different things and all those things, right? So that's where one of the thoughts came that, hey, how can you use chat to make communication between different, not just people, but other entities also better, right? So when we started thinking about that, the first use case that came to mind for us is, we all know customer support is really, really hard, right? Like
Yeah.
anytime you face a problem, you have to call someone. First, you have to find their number, wait in line, for like 30 minutes and then do that. So we're like, why can't we make this better, right? And I think that was the aha moment where we're like, hey, I think we can use this medium. We can make that concept of support a lot better. And obviously at that point, being in the technology space, we were seeing a lot of up and coming things about this, machine learning, right? That, hey, instead of doing everything manually, you could write computer programs to do some of these things for you, right? And not the whole thing, but you could automate some of it, right? And I think, so that's all of those ideas together came about, which really, led to the, inception of, Haptic for that matter. And that's when we started Haptic. And why Haptic, the name, we we went back and forth a lot just trying to find a name, right?
Yeah.
Our couple of criterias was, at that point, right? Because we were also thinking we wanted a happy sounding name, right? That was number one, right? We wanted something that's happy. When you say that, it sounds happy, right? Number two was we didn't want a very complicated name, which is too long or any on those lines, right?
Yeah.
And actually, the word haptics, Haptics, is its origin is actually a German word, but it means a form of non-verbal communication. So actually, what haptics mean is, like sometimes when you when you touch your phone vibrates, right? It's giving you feedback that hey, the action is performed. That's what you call haptic feedback, right? So we played on that word and came up with the name Haptic and named our company after that. So that's really the story behind it for that matter.
That's a really great story, rather. And okay, so for all this, what were the key challenges? I'm sure you must have faced a number of them, but how did you come?
Yeah, I mean, uh, in the 7 years now, in fact, we're going to complete 7 years now in a couple of days for that matter. I mean, there's a lot of challenges, right? And I think if if you look at the journey of Haptic, you can read a lot about it online as well. We've
Yeah.
obviously kind of moved and, what you call in the startup zone, pivoted a bunch of times, right? Like we've gone from one idea to another idea to another idea, right? And the thing was, since the beginning, the belief that I told you that, hey, using chat or using conversations to build more utility has always been the core. But through our journey, we've kind of implemented different ideas, right? So as I said, we started obviously as this customer support app. The minute you get on it, you're hit with the first few challenges, which is, you know, no company is going to be like, oh, let me give this haptic, this new company of 2 3 people my business, right? No business was willing to work with us. And all the time the users coming to you would be that, hey, if you don't have anyone on your platform, how can you give me support, right?
Hmm.
So it's like a chicken and egg problem, so we went about, that was, if you look at it, the way we started, right? And we obviously became, um, you know we ran through those challenges, but then eventually we pivoted, into a personal assistant app, right? So we were a direct to consumer personal assistant app where you could download our app, come on there and be like, hey, you know I want, like, can you tell me good movies playing around me, right? I want to book a flight, I want to order some food. So we were doing all of that, so like helping people out as a personal assistant. So because of sets of challenges, we pivoted to that. Then obviously that has its own set of challenges, and we pivoted back to being not a customer support. Now we call ourselves as a conversational AI company, but we do a lot of support today. But now we do it differently. Now we work directly with those brands because now people know us. you know uh, in India, people have heard about Haptic and they're willing to kind of work with us, and we automate support for them and those kind of things, right? So there's been obviously a lot of challenges through the thing. The key thing, obviously, as I look at it, right, which is obviously in the startup world, a lot of thing is fantasize that, hey, build your startup and you'll make money. But the idea is, you have to think about a business model, right? It is very,
Yeah.
very important to have business model because, you know, the few companies we hear that, oh, Facebook became this big before they started making money, this and that. I mean, those are 1%, right? You have to at least have that idea of how will you start making money, when will you start making money, because without that, it's very hard to sustain a business, right? And in the end, you're building a business. So, while obviously, we've gone through different business models, I think trying to find the right model that clicks, which people want to buy, people are willing to spend money on, is important. And that's consistently been a challenge, which I think not just for us but a lot of startups, right? I think that's important to always think about. And I think that's usually when we, different challenges, but that's been the core of how do you make a sustainable business has always been a big challenge, which we always think about. Luckily now we are at a place where we figured it out. We have a good business model, we are actually making money now. Obviously the challenge, or not challenge, the next challenge that we come now is growth, right? Now that
Yeah.
we found out, how do you really scale and become that big company, right? So you kind of have to now look at that. So overall, some of challenges are like that, but obviously there are a lot more nitty gritty challenges that you face a lot often otherwise.
So after that, how did you manage to get your first funding? Like, was it tough or?
Yeah, in fact, in the history of Haptic, um, we have almost every time when we were getting funding, we were not almost, in fact, twice in the history of Haptic, we've run out of money.
Oh.
Uh, And luckily, right, when we run out of money, very soon after that, we've actually gotten our funding. So, we've been at a multiple times where, we had to shut shop because we had run out of money. Obviously, sometimes, we put in our own money and got it back. But, funding's been for Haptik, a very interesting journey. But our first funding was actually by Kalari Capital. It was a year and a half into building Haptik, right? So when we started building Haptik, we raised our first round after a year and a half. And how we obviously kind of, spoke to a lot of VCs, it was actually fairly challenging because up until recently, right, like a couple of years ago, the space we were in, which is chatbots and conversation AI and all of that, didn't exist. So, when you're trying to pitch an idea, which back in 2013, a lot of people didn't even know about, right? They're like, hey, what is this? We should not even call it chatbots, right? Today, with Alexa, Google Home, and all of these, it's become so common. But back then, it really didn't exist. So you had to explain the concept to them that, no, this is what I'm trying to do. You had to try to sell a vision that, hey, while I know nothing like this exists today, imagine 6 years, 10 years, 20 years from today, what can happen. And, it was a constant struggle, right? When you're trying to get into a market which does not exist, it's not easy. You have to convince people, you have to sell your vision. A lot of people don't believe because, they're like, I don't believe this can work, right? That time the technology was also a lot more naive. So we went through a lot of funding, right? We spoke to a lot of venture capitalists, we spoke to a lot of people. But in the end, that's what it is, right? I think hard work always pays out. So more than hard work, I'll say persistence always pays out, right? Like we never gave up. Luckily we had Kalari Capital who believed in us. They believed in the concept of what we were trying to build. Even though at that point we were making zero revenue, we had users, but not too many. But, they were able to see the future of what we were trying to build. And then, the belief was there. I'll also say that VCs, apart from India, apart from the idea, also focus a lot on the founders, right? Like they need to know, and a lot of the good VCs do that, right? I'll say that a lot of good VCs at that early stage, when you're pre-revenue, new ideas, a lot of the bets are on the founders as well, right? So it's not just, hey, is your idea good? I think Kalari Capital and us, we were able to find that connect, right? I'm not saying the others we were looking or didn't think one was right or the other, but I think the connect is important. And we were able to really find that connect with Kalari. They believed in what we were doing. We knew they could help us out. So that's how it really came together. So yeah, I think that's what it was. Again, we almost ran out of money before the money hit our bank account, and it's continuously happened with Haptik, where we've always run out of money and then money comes into our bank.
Many ups and downs like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's been a roller coaster of a journey.
Okay, so after that, what, according to you, is the future of conversational AI from now, about 5-10 years down the line?
No, absolutely. See, I think, we're living in a world now, if you would look at this 10 years ago, right, and you would be watching sci-fi movies, you would be like, that sounds so far away, right? And where honestly, we can now look back and watch some movies from back in the day and be like, oh, people talking to their phones, people getting, very close to technology, people getting confused between technology and humans and all of those things, right? And that's kind of what we're really going for, right? I mean, conversational AI, if you go to look at it, humans interact with each other through conversations, right? And as we said, right, I mean, there's voice, there's video, there is texting, there is all of that, right? And that's kind of how we interact as humans, right? For us to be able to leverage machines, conversations is going to be that important, right? Like that's how we're going to be able to leverage the different machines around us. And that's kind of what, if you look at 10 years from today, right? And this is my core belief, where I don't think it's a belief that a lot of people say that, oh, machines will take over. I don't believe in that at all. I, in fact, think it's going to be machines and humans working together in tandem, where it won't feel awkward that, hey, there's a machine next to you or you're talking to a machine or not, right? It becomes as normal as talking to a human. And basically, we're going to live in these worlds where you'll have machines around you, you'll have humans around you, you'll be interacting with each other like you would interact with anyone else. And that's where we're going to get to, right? It's a far-fetched thing, but if you would have asked me this 6, 7, 8 years ago, I'll be like, hey, this is a 20, 30-year vision, right? If you ask me this today, I think we're closer to than we imagined. Technology is improving faster than we imagined. And, there is no doubt why we shouldn't get there sooner rather than later. Obviously, tons of challenges to solve, but I think that's what's exciting, right? A lot of people are getting in there. A lot of people are trying to solve challenges individually, and they will all come together to make that kind of world that we live in. So yeah, I believe machines, humans working together, living in an ecosystem where it doesn't feel awkward anymore. And that's what really conversational AI is here, right? So I look at it, what will it bring? What do we need, and what problems do we need to solve to bring 7 billion people in this world talking to machines, right? And I think that's kind of what you have to really look
That is really quite interesting. Also, the last question would be that what is your, advice for young entrepreneurs?
Yeah, no, I mean, my advice has always been, see, I think at least for startups and entrepreneurs, right? The journey for anyone, right? I mean, on the outside, it looks very, very fascinating, but it's filled with ups and downs, right? I mean, one of the things is people don't talk about the downs that often, but it is always filled with up and downs. And that's why when you are going after something, you have to be truly passionate about it, right? I think that's important, right? But along with passion, you have to be practical, right? And I think that's important, right? I mean, obviously, I have a passion to make sure I build the best conversational AI ever, right?
Yeah.
But I need to be practical about this, right? I cannot be idealistic today. I need to take baby steps till I get there, and it's a journey to get there. So you have to enjoy the journey, and to enjoy the journey, you need to be obviously passionate, because when you're hitting your lows, it's very easy to kind of be like, hey, I'm going to quit. But every low has an up and every up has a low, and that's just the journey of any single business owner, startup, entrepreneur, or life, right? So you have to kind of be passionate about it. That's kind of my thing. Be practical about it. And then the third thing, as I said, which all comes together, is persistence, right?
Yeah.
You have to keep at it, right? I mean, if you combine passion, practicality, and persistence, I see no reason why, there is no reason to kind of succeed, right? Obviously, you'll have to pivot. You started your passion in one area, it might end up in a different area. Persistence will make you get there, and being practical about it is going to get you there, right? And I think that's the way I look at it. But yeah, you got to solve. The way I tell people is, find a problem and solve a problem, right? So the hardest part is finding the problem. I think once you find a problem, you can find solutions to it. So finding solutions is the easy problem. Finding problems is the hard part, right? So really kind of thinking about what problem you're trying to solve, what is it that you're trying to, do for, is what I would think is a harder one. But my advice would be those three things, right? Passion, practicality, and persistence.
The three P's, that's amazing.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So thank you so much, sir. Wonderful conversation, and really learned a lot from all of this. Thank you so much
No,
for your time.
absolutely. And, it's great to see, it's great to see, people starting at a much, much earlier age, right? I mean, it's not like I just remember when I was, uh, 15, 16, 17, 18, I wasn't even thinking about it. I mean, I was passionate about computers, but I was never thinking that, hey, one day I would start my own thing and do all that. It's great to see that. And, absolutely, if there's any time you need help, anything, I'm always, happy to kind of give back, right? I think one of the things I've learned is I've grown because people have given to me, and I would love to give back to other people, right? And I think that's the cycle that will help all of us improve. So if you ever need help, please let me know, and good luck.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Bye
All right.
bye.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks, Tisha. Bye.